You've all been 4:15. Thank you all attending the Special Finance Committee. Zuko, Burnett, Sexton, Thomas, Coates, we're all here. Thank you very much. Any peculiar interest? Being none, we'll move on to transfer of agenda items. Be any transfer of agenda items? There is none. We've got a report on the fees and charges. I'll open the item for discussion, and before I open the item for discussion, I just want to point out to all the committee where I sit on some of these fees and charges, just in case I may have to excuse myself from the chair to move any amendments, but I don't support the reduction in fees for food truck permits, and I actually support that they remain the same. I can give you reasons later, but I don't want to go overboard at this point in time. So whoever's going to be moving anything, just sort of give that good thought. If not, I'll move for myself from the chair. Alderman Briscoe.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I know I'm not a member of the committee, but I just need a little bit of explanation on the pool hire, which is on page 35. Now, we have had some communication. I've had lots of communication regarding a slight anomaly, but I don't know whether the appropriate director or the appropriate manager is in the audience, but through you, Chair, how do we determine lane hire from that pool hire? There's only one line item called pool hire. How do we determine lane rates?
Through you, Chairman, Mr Noy is the responsible director and was to join us online. With your indulgence, Alderman Briscoe, we might give Mr Noy a moment or two to join us, so I'll take that one on notice until...
Here he is.
Here he comes. Here he is.
Yeah, look, thank you, Chair. Look, I need to take that one on notice. I just don't have the answers in front of me as to how they are calculated, but I know that there was careful consideration given to all those fees, so I'd need to take it on notice. And get that.
Well, thank you. I wonder if I could explain a little bit more. Two bits of communication I've received. One I think we all received this morning, but I received another one a couple of days ago. The training, if people wish to hire the full 50-metre pool lane, but that's not available, then they hire the 25-metre dive pool, then it's not half the cost. It's in fact more than half the cost to hire the 25-metre, and it seems to me an anomaly. Now, why it's important is that, particularly the email I received a couple of days ago, was that there is a masters group that find it's prohibitive if they can only use the 25-metre at an extraordinarily high rate. So Mr Noy will look into that, but presumably the high rate is a management decision, not so much a council. The council will if this goes ahead tonight, will determine the pool hire was 481, but the actual breakdown, if you're going to hire a lane in either of the pools, then that's an operational matter. And I wonder if rather than me move an amendment or anything, just for Mr Noy to take that on notice, and if it needs to have a slight change to make sure that they're equitable, the higher fee for the dive pool and the full 50-metre pool is equitable. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Happy to take it on notice, and we'll treat it as an operational issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Deputy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. There's quite a lot of figures here, and yeah, it's pages of it, obviously, which is good to see it all together. But I just wonder if Mr Doyle might be able to you could just give a little bit of a pricing.
Thank you, Chairman. Certainly, historically, it's been the case that the fees and charges are broken up and directed to council via various committees. This year, as we discussed at the workshop last week, it was agreed that they would be collated, so as elected members had a chance to get an overarching understanding of what's proposed. This schedule was circulated a week or so ago, and it has obviously been circulated as an attachment to the agenda. Staff have undertaken a comprehensive review of the fees and charges, mindful that CPI came in at 5.82%. There was discussion, as I say, at a recent workshop, and I think as Alderman Sexton raised via email, a lot of these fees and charges provide us with partial rather than full recovery of the costs. And as the CEO advised elected members, it is the intention of staff to undertake a comprehensive review on the methodology used to actually come up with fees and charges over the next 6-month period, so as we can have a framework that guides us in terms of future application. At the moment, we've looked at the extent to which we can get full recovery. We've looked at the market, mindful of ACCC impact and other forces. We've looked at what other councils are doing, and what you have before you is the best recommendation that the directors can provide to you at this current time, but generally in line with CPI or below, if that helps.
Yep, no, that's good, and I couldn't be at the workshop last week because I was on leave, but we certainly had discussions of that previous workshop. I too had the same question in relation to food trucks and the logic behind putting it up. I know there are notes there, and just wanted to, well, and I'll ask another question in a moment.
Okay, Lord Mayor.
Through you to Mr. Doyle.
Can you put your hand up? Sorry, I missed it.
No, I didn't. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sincerely apologise. I thought you said after. It's okay. Sorry.
No, the question was on the food trucks.
So Chairman, perhaps through you to the relevant director, a conversation with regard to the food trucks and the logic behind that change.
Thank you. So we spoke this morning. We talked through the logic behind the change. It's actually a decrease, not an increase in those fees, and it was to put ourselves in market with neighbouring councils. In consultation, Alderman Zuko requested that we review that position based on the need to not undercut the wider food and beverage or restaurant industry. What we agreed is that we'll submit them as is, and then if there's an objection to a decrease in those, we'll accept that and move forward. But predominantly it was to move in line with neighbouring councils.
I see. Okay, thank you.
So Chairman, just to clarify, we're in the hands of committee. If you want to change those, you have the power to do so.
Okay. Just before I get to Alderman Barakis, I just want to if I can, just assist the deputy. In my discussions with staff today, I put forward a number of scenarios, and number one was, we've been charging these fees. We are the capital city, and I know, being in business, where I'd like to have my food truck, and it's not about having 50 food trucks. It'd be best to have a dozen or 15 of the very best food trucks operating in the city of Hobart. And if anyone's seen the food truck scene in New York and some of the big cities around, if you've got a very specialised group of people operating in a particular city, we can actually add advantage to those when we're marketing our city. You know, come to Hobart, we've got the watermelon food truck. It's the only watermelon food truck in Hobart, and that. So you actually deliver a far better product if you have less food trucks and not 100 of the same. And the other thing is if we're going to reduce the fees on food trucks because of what other municipalities are doing, well, why don't we reduce the fees of our commercial sector because other municipalities are charging less rates? We shouldn't worry so much about what other municipalities are doing. We should worry about our city, our capital city, and what we're doing here, not necessarily who charges what next door. Okay, anyway, Alderman Barakis.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Thing, and then Alderman Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to make some similar points. I think if I know it wasn't the argument stated, but if we're reducing fees and the idea being that we're going to stimulate more food vans, then the same argument would extend to small businesses, and if we're lowering those fees and charges, then we'll be stimulating the business sector, which I'm happy to have that conversation as well. I think an additional point is, as far as other municipalities charging less for their permits than we are, that's all well and good, but I'd say that the value of a permit in Kingborough or Glenorchy or Clarence is worth less than one is in Hobart anyway. Hobart, no municipalities around outside of Hobart have, the Saturday markets, have the Taste of Tasmania, have Dark Mofo and those sort of events happening on the street. I'm only just picking a couple of the big events that happen around Hobart throughout the year. And to say, I think that the inherent value of a permit in Hobart's the same as one in Kingborough or Clarence, I think's false. I think to have a permit in Hobart, it's inherently worth more because of the quantity and quantity of customers that they'll get purely because of all those events that happen. I'm of a similar view to you, Chair. I think that we need to be careful not to be undercutting similar or competing businesses in the hospitality space. I think with any level of government needs to be really careful that they're not accidentally picking winners and not influencing how the market operates in this. And I think we need to be careful not to have not to give one sector an unfair advantage over the other. But if we want to talk about reducing fees for small businesses across the board, then I'm more than happy to have that conversation too, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Duddo.
Thank you. Firstly, with regards to the food truck, I totally support the points made, and I have stated this many times, even with the parking rates, for example. We can't compare the capital city with other, and that argument has been used, and tonight it's very clear that we can't use that argument. Therefore, my question is, and I support being in hospitality, I know that when competition comes out there and something is parked in front of my shop, it's going to diminish my own profit, as it were, or sales. And so therefore, it's a real concern. My question here is two. One, with regards to this, the annual fee for trucks has come down from 13 to 600. Which is more than 50%, and I just wanting to know what is the rationale behind that vast reduction. And the second question is with regards to the other bits where we have partial cost recovery. Why do we have partial cost recovery? If it costs us $50, why don't we charge the whole amount?
Well, in the workshop the other day, the officers gave the answer to that, and I can stand corrected. It was the partial cost recovery, and I think Alderman Sexton was there as well, is relevant to, in those parts, community benefit. Now, was that correct or incorrect? Yep. That's correct, Chair. So it was about community benefit. In regards to your other question, I can actually direct it to an officer, but it's actually in the explanation. If you look at where you said 1302,600, it says here an overall reduction in food trucks is proposed to encourage more participation, blah, blah, blah. So it's actually there, but if you'd like that question answered by the director, that's fine. But the answer is there. That's well, I've got the big one, right?
13 of 99.
Yep.
13 of 99.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Second one down.
Thank you.
So the explanation's there. I don't know if you got that explanation there, but if the director would like to sort of make a point as well.
So that particular one, the 1302 down to 600, is for non-motorised, non-road registered vehicles. So it's essentially a fixed food truck, but it's not actually on wheels. So that particular one is a lower value versus on the next page, which has the road registered vehicles that are able to move around, which is a reduction on that one. So they're essentially, and just to clarify from Alderman Barakas's point, they're not the same as fees in other councils. They're just more closely aligned because we were quite high. Yeah.
Okay, now Alderman Sexton.
So, Chairman, has anybody moved anything yet?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so I'm happy to move that the schedule of fees and charges for council market management B, the special B, adopted except that the fees and charges for food vans remain the same as for the 21-22 financial year.
Thank you. Then we're going to go to Thomas and then the Lord Mayor.
Alderman Sexton has stolen the thunder, and
Okay.
that's it. That's all I was going to do.
Okay, Lord Mayor.
Just wanting to know if there was any other evidence that the Director wanted to provide about how many complaints we might have had that our fees were too high, or that we were getting a situation where, you know, markets were saying we can't attract food vans to our events because they're all too busy outside the city. Anything that we should be aware of? Because I think we all can appreciate the sentiment that if we accidentally sort of trigger something that's detrimental, it would be good to know if there was any other evidence that you wanted to.
Yeah, so there's certainly, the officers have provided me with some data that has been collected throughout the year in regards to people that have chosen to exit the program. And their primary feedback has been that their fees were quite high compared to surrounding councils. There are others that have been able to thrive and the fee isn't a factor for them. So we're currently had 12 registered in the past 12 months, that has reduced to 9 that are active in the food truck schedule that we have on a regular basis. There's some other quality tweaks that the team will make throughout the next 12 months to enable the reduction in complaints or conflicts with trading too close, or having too many food trucks in a particular area on a particular night. They're making some changes to the policies around those that should resolve some of the other challenges that have been raised throughout the past 12 months.
That's a reasonable number of, I mean, it's only small numbers, but that's a reasonable percentage that seem to have departed the program, saying that it's the fees. I mean, I wonder whether there could be a compromise, Alderman Sexton, that it's a small discount from the previous year, but not the full amount that's proposed, so that we can sort of signal some goodwill to those folks that are.
If I could propose a compromise, there are 3 new fees that are introduced. So if we remain the same as last year, we won't have the opportunity to utilise a 3-month quiet period permit that may actually stimulate some opportunity. So if I may ask, the ones that are posed to reduce, we can hold, but the newer ones that enable us a 3-month more flexible permit that were not previously in place, I would like to put those forward.
Wait, Alderman Briscoe?
Sorry, when we finish with the food vans, I've got another question. Yeah.
Okay, look, I just want to just answer the Lord Mayor's point and give you an overview. As someone who's been in the hospitality industry for a long time and been in the Taste of Tasmania and all that, I remember my second year at the Taste of Tasmania. There was a stall at the Taste that no one wanted because they said it's the worst stall in the whole complex. I took that stall and made it the most profitable stall in the Taste, and then the next year everyone wanted that stall, but I had it allocated for the next 3 years. It's not necessarily the amount of food trucks you got there and cost, as long as it's reasonable. It's about what people deliver. In the food industry, you can open up a business in the middle of Tasmania. As long as you deliver, you will make money out of it. With the food trucks, to me, if someone complains that the cost of running that food truck is prohibitive, it means more than just the factor of the cost there. Maybe they're not delivering an expectation, maybe they're not delivering a service, maybe they're not delivering the product that's needed for that food truck to actually make a good living. Good food trucks, and I know quite a number of operators that are making money, they're good operators. They also adapt to the situation, whether it's winter, whether it's summer, and all that. It's like trying to go out on a 40-degree day and selling a bowl of pasta. You're not going to do that. Or going through winter and trying to sell a salad. You're not going to do that. So food trucks are like any other business. They need to look at their product, they need to look at what they're doing and deliver it. I actually believe that during the winter period, the worst part of winter period in the hospitality industry is halfway through May and until such time now, dark mofo happens. Because people, it's the start of winter and people at the start of winter don't like going out. Once they do experience it with dark mofo now, which has been amazing, it changes the whole nature of people going out. So what we could do, rather than just simply reducing fees, what we could be doing during the periods of winter or during that worst part of it, we could be actually doing some marketing and events, having some, where we've got food trucks happening, we could have a jazz player happening there. Change the whole nature of the food truck industry and make it the best food truck industry in the world. That's what I'd love to see for the city of Hobart, rather than have 50 food trucks, have the best of the best operating here in Hobart. And if we've got the best of the best and we market these people in different ways, and we've got these couple of extra dollars, we could have more events. And I'll just give you another example. There's one that sits in Newtown on Risdon Road. There's one operator that sits there, in the middle of nowhere, during winter. Could you just imagine saying, okay, let's have a special event here. We'll have 3 food trucks and a winter soccer game or something like that. So we create, rather than just have the food trucks, we're creating an atmosphere. I think we need to think outside the square here, and I strongly believe that we as a council, a capital city, can make our food truck industry the best. So let's target that rather than have 100 food trucks. Let's have the best of the best. Councillor Harvey.
Do we still have no-go zones for food trucks in Hobart, Sandy Bay, North Hobart, Battery Point?
Certain areas, yes. I think it's a distance.
Yeah, it's 50 metres.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Deputy.
Look, I think you make some good points, Chair. I was just wondering if Alderman Sexton might put in that we, or that it's taken on board, that we actually look at this a little more carefully.
That was my concern about having, sort of giving a partial discount or whatever. It's sort of, I think, I agree with the Chairman. I think it's a much more complicated issue, and I agree entirely with the Deputy that we need to, this needs to go away with the staff who spend a lot of time talking to food truck owners and so on, and so food van owners and so on and so forth, that I'm sure they would be able to sit down and work out a program, tell us how much it's going to cost, and then that can come back to us separately. But in the interim, because we just really don't have the time to work through this properly, leave it as it was last year, but say to the van owners that we're looking at a program to try and promote their businesses, or try and promote the areas in which their businesses can operate, so that it'll make it more profitable. And I think if we do that, I agree with the Chairman and I agree with the Deputy, it's going to be a much better outcome than just simply taking $20 or $30 or $100 off a licence fee and then doing nothing. So I'm perfectly happy to leave my amendment.
I just want to let everybody know, sorry to interrupt, I want to let everybody know new information now, please, because we need to get on to this meeting. Lord Mayor.
Look, it was just to try and get clarity on this question that I think the Director was going to tell us, not about the overall amount, but these different amounts for different seasons. Whether that, because I think she was suggesting that was quite important. I just wouldn't mind hearing what that is.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's 3 fees that are listed in that are the ability to, from not including a particular zone, being Salamanca, with a new fee where they can trade everywhere but, and therefore we're able to stimulate, a slightly different cycle and a different energy around those.
And they're just they're short-term, 3-month permits. So they're more for the experimental ones. So maybe that fits in with what people are trying to do, which is get in some of the newer ones and give them a cheap 3-month thing. But if they want to move into becoming a more permanent, they've got to pay the full amount.
Yeah.
So
that's in the mix now. Alderman Briscoe.
Yes, I'd just like to change the topic because we're talking about the whole motion, aren't we?
Yep.
If I have a dangerous dog prior to the end of this month, I'd only have to pay $310, but if I have a dangerous dog after the 1st of July, I'd pay $950. That's a $640 increase, And firstly, perhaps I should ask to clarify, if I want to have a dangerous dog, could be Panda or Harvey or someone, could we, it was a joke, so am I asking permission for a dangerous dog, or is it a category that if I have a dangerous dog I have to pay that amount to get rid of it or something?
Mr. Noy, did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. I'm just trying to get my...
We can
It's on
see
page
now.
58. Page 58.
Quite obviously we're not paying him enough money for, he hasn't got razor blades. Anyway, it's all right.
That's what COVID does to you. Yeah, look, it's my point. You do need permission to have a dangerous dog, and there is a fairly detailed regulatory process that you've got to go through to house one, and there is so officers do need to spend time with the owner and inspecting the premises to ensure that the housing arrangements are satisfactory. So the fee, we believe, is justified.
A $640 increase?
Yeah, look, it does require, this is a cost recovery exercise.
Oh, it is a cost recovery one?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Noy. Thank you, Alderman Briscoe, Alderman Barakis, and now I'm going back to Alderman Sexton.
So just so that we can finalise this truck issue. So apologies that I don't fully know the answer to this question, but through you to the director, are you suggesting that there are new categories that were not there last year? Okay. So I'm only referring to the categories that were there last year.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, okay. Alderman Barakis.
Thank you. And just moving on to different topics on this. Page 33 of 99 on the, or page 24 for you, Alderman Zuko, I think. Chair, in regards to application for planning permits, is just a question. These don't differentiate, and this might be one for Mr. Noy, I guess. These don't differentiate between residential and commercial or anything like that, do they?
Mr. Noy?
Look, sorry, I was having difficulty hearing that question. Could you please...
Is that better, Director?
Yes, hearing you now.
Page 33 of the agenda, where you've got application for planning permits, it lists the different fees for different costs of development. They don't differentiate between residential and commercial or anything like that, do they?
Sorry, I'll just...
Yeah.
There is no differentiation necessarily.
Thank you for that. Look, this is just food for thought, I guess, Chair, given I'm not a member of the committee. Not looking so much towards the large development values, but more towards the especially the $200,000 to $600,000 range. Can't help but think out loud whether it might be worth having a separate cost there for residential applications that are in that price range, because that is specifically the price range that we would see affordable housing getting built. And given that that's something that I'm sure everybody around the table wants to encourage, having the cost of those the cost for a development in that price range going from $700 to $1,200 is a pretty significant jump. So it might be worth consideration of the committee and then perhaps council shortly if we were to split that off and have a separate fee for residential applications in that price bracket, so that there could be an incentive for people to put forward applications that would be within the affordable housing price bracket. So that just a food for thought there. I'll leave that there, Chair.
Well, could I just suggest that you move an amendment in some way that the director come back with a report or something to...
I can't do that, Chair. I'm not a member of the committee.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm happy to move that, Chair, that we capture that Alderman Barakis' issue in terms of seeing whether or not we can accept from the increase from 700 to 1,200 those applications which relate to having a component of affordable housing.
The director bring back a report.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else want to debate just that amendment? I'll put the amendment. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? The amendment's carried. Okay, we're still on the motion. Anyone else? Anything else? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
No.
There's a motion moved by Alderman Sexton that, with that slight change. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? The item's carried unanimously.